Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Miss Welton, and today we will be learning about greater than, less than, or equal to. When thinking about greater than, less than, or equal to, I want you to think about your favorite animal. So kids could say any animal, dogs, cats, birds, whatever they think of. And I'm going to say my favorite animal is an alligator. And students might ask why. Why? Because they're big, because they eat a lot of things. Like, why would that be my favorite? And I would explain that they have one of the largest mouths to eat the greatest amount of food or any animal that they're preying on. Thinking about alligator mouths, actually, I would have the kids, with their hands, try to describe what an alligator mouth does. Thinking about what it does, it chomps with the mouth most open when the food is the biggest, or the number is the largest. So here on the board I have greater than, less than, or equal to. Greater than sign points to the left, less than to the right, and equal to is an equal to sign. Students see equal to signs in every math problem usually, growing up through elementary school, high school, middle school, whatever. You always see equal to signs, but do we really think about what it ever means? So, for example, a greater than equation would be, say we have the number 2, and then we have the number 5. So we compare the numbers 2 and 5. Obviously, we have learned that 2 comes before 5, so it must be less than. So we would put the greater than sign to the 5. And if we rewrote that, 5 and 2, we know the greater than is 5, because 5 is bigger than 2. So for less than, if we had the numbers 3 and 7, we know that 3 comes before 7 on a number scale. So 3 is less than 7. So with the less than sign, we would eat the 7 because 3 is less than it. So the alligator mouth, and you can rewrite these either way. So 7 is greater than 3. So either way you write it, you always want to make sure that the alligator mouth is open to the bigger number, because that means it's eating the greater number, and that number is greater than. So here we have the mouth opening to a 5 because it's greater. And then the same thing down here, you have the mouth open to a 5. So, if we do another example with 6 and 3, to write a greater than sign, you would want to open the mouth to the 6, which would make it 6 is greater than 3. So another example of a less than, we could do 2 and 4, and we know 2 is less than 4 because it comes before on the number scale, so an alligator would want to be eating the 4. So this says 2 is less than 4. So if you ever have trouble thinking about maybe which way should the alligator mouth be opening to, always think that it wants to be eating the bigger number. So whatever numbers you have, always open it to the other number, to the bigger number. Equal to, so in math problems we always have this sign usually at the end of an equation. Maybe it's not comparing two numbers, but you're trying to solve for an answer. But when you think about it, you try to solve to make it proportional and make the two numbers on either side of this equation the same. So what equals one another? So for example, if we had the numbers 2 and 2, those are the same numbers, so they equal each other. So for another example, if we have 4 and 4, this 4 isn't bigger than this 4, and this 4 isn't less than this 4, they're equal to. So you would just put an equal to sign in the middle of it. So we have single digit numbers right now. Does it make sense? Everyone make sense? Questions? I would ask questions. A little clarification. The part that can get tricky is remembering the signs, because I wrote greater than is this way, but it still works for this way. So how I think about it is you always open it to the bigger number, but you can explain it differently. This equation says 2 is less than 5. this equation says 5 is greater than 2. So honestly, you can say it both ways and it means the same thing, but it does depend what sign you're using. But it's basically saying the same thing because 2 is still less than 5, 5 is still greater than 2. It's just reverse of how you say it. And same goes for less than. So this would say 3 is less than 7, or 7 is greater than 3. It just depends on what sign out of these two that you use, but in the end, it'll all say the same thing. So when thinking about single-digit numbers, we know some double-digit numbers. And it can get tricky here if we don't know our number scale, but hopefully we've learned it. And remember how the numbers are in order, and which is less than and which is greater than each other. So if we erase the 2 and the 5, and we try to make it a little more complex for our lesson today, we can think about larger numbers. Larger numbers don't have to be huge numbers that we haven't learned yet, but numbers that we can still work with. So numbers such as 10, if we have the number 10, and then we have the number 14. So we think 10 and 14, which one's bigger and which one's smaller? Well, we know 10 is smaller, and we know 14 is larger. So we're trying to figure out which one's greater than. So 14 is greater than 10. So we always want to make sure we're opening that mouth to the largest number. So right now, this says 10 is less than 14 because we read left to right, and we have 10, and we know it's smaller than 14. If we wanted to write it as a greater than problem, under the greater than, so here we can put the 10 is less than 14, but if we wanted to write 14 is greater than 10, we could say 14 is greater than 10. Another easy way to remember this is put the number that you're talking about first. For example, if we're trying to say less than in this example, 10 is less than 14, so you should write 10 first. In greater than, if we're trying to say 14 is greater than 10, then we should write 14 first, put the sign of the alligator eating a larger number, and write the 10 at the end. Equal to, it's the same thing as single digits, just like these all are, but this is the same also. Equal to. What two numbers are exactly the same? So if we have 11 and 11, we just plop an equal sign in the middle because we know 11 and 11, there's no greater than or less than, it's the same number. If we have, for example, 13 and 14, what sign will we put in between? And then I would have a student raise their hand and tell me what they think the answer is. And hopefully they would say that the answer is a less than sign because 13 is less than 14. They don't equal each other. 13 is not greater than 14. 13 is less than, so we want that less than sign. In my lesson plan, I would show a video that I have found online. It's just explaining these in a little rhyme that gets stuck in your head, hopefully, and helps the students learn, which I had put in my lesson plan that we did in a different module. And then I would ask the students to, at first I'll put some problems on the board. Problems that, okay, well that's going to take a while, we'll go over here. Problems that they could solve with a classmate. For example, I'll do number 1, 10 and 15. Number 2, 2 and 1. Number 3, 5 and 6. And number 4 could be 21 and 21. So now I would ask the students to work with someone by them or by themselves if they feel comfortable enough and try to answer these questions. And then I would raise our groups. So group 1, what would you think the answer of 10 and 15? What sign would we put in between? Greater than, less than or equal to sign. Which sign do you agree with? And so number one, they would explain. So if they had said this sign, which says 10 is greater than 15, I would ask them, so we have the alligator mouth opening to the 10, but is 10 really greater than 15 on a number scale? No. So we want the alligator mouth to open to this 15. Group 2. Number 2. 2 and 1. What sign do you believe would go in between 2 and 1? Well, 2 is greater than 1. And that alligator is really hungry and really wants to eat the bigger numbers. So which number, 2 or 1, do you think is greater? 2. So we want to open that mouth to 2 and let him chomp on that 2 since it's bigger and he's really hungry. Number 3. We got 5 and we got 6. Which number comes first on a number scale? 5. So the bigger number is 6. So having that alligator nice and hungry, he wants to chomp down on that number 6. So we open him up to chomp on number 6. Down here, we have numbers 21 and 21. And I would ask a group, what sign would you put in between 21 and 21? If they say greater than, I would say, greater than or less than, I would say, which 21 is bigger than which 21 and which 21 is less than which 21? They look like the same to me, and then hopefully they would understand that it's an equal sign. The same number equals each other, obviously. So reiterating how we would say this in speaking language of less than, greater than, or equal to, we would say 10 is less than 15. 2 is greater than 1. 5 is less than 6. 21 is equal to 21. So to make sure we understand greater than, less than, or equal to, we need to make sure we understand how numbers are lined up on a number scale and know which number comes before which, so we know what is less than, greater than, or equal to each other. After I've done my lesson plan, I would ask if any student had any questions, or there was something that was unclear, or to go over any of these equations again, or maybe just give more examples, and it would help them understand. And then I would have them group up, or actually first I would have them write out their own equations. 3 equations without the sign in the middle, just 2 numbers. And then once they're all done, crumple them up. In a game I like to play is popcorn, toss them up in the air, and everyone grabs a new crumpled piece of paper. They open it, and they try to solve the 3 problems, putting in a sign in between 2 numbers that the other student has written. At the end, I'll go around and check, but if there's any questions, I want to answer them as a class because maybe someone else has a question, but they just don't want to ask. So we would like to do questions all together just to clear any misinterpretations or anything up. After the popcorn activity, I would do what the homework assignment is for the night. For the homework, I was going to give them a worksheet of just these problems with single digit and double digit. If they have any questions on any of the homework problems, try. If they don't get it, bring it in. We'll discuss it as a class. Next week, I would have them create a project. This could be a poem, a poster, anything they would like. And just a way that they understood greater than, less than, or equal to visually to show their classmates, to help them, and to let me know that they understood what we learned today. An example for a poem, you could do a nice song that rhymes together, adding any of these vocabulary or numbers into it. A poster idea could be an alligator mouth, and pasting 2 numbers on the end of the alligator mouth, and then a small corner of an alligator mouth like this, and pointing the mouth to the bigger number. You could do something creative like that. Anything is fine with me, but just to make sure the students understood what they have learned, and to make sure I reflect, if they didn't understand anything and I clearly see something's missing, I could reflect, reteach the lesson in a different way if it didn't work out that way, or ask the students what would better help them to understand what I'm trying to teach. But reflection on a teacher is definitely very, very important after a lesson. And then I would close the lesson. Thank you.